So here we go. Let's talk about the differences between exclusive and non-exclusive music libraries. This is a point of a lot of confusion for a lot of new coming producers into this industry. Not only will I make each one of these crystal clear for you, but I'll also lay out the pros and cons of each according to my perspective and my experience in this business. And there are pros and cons to each. It's not like one is always better than the other. There are definitely going to be strengths and weaknesses on both sides. And then I'll also actually walk you through the various strategies that you can employ in your career, because there's basically four main strategies essentially that you can pursue in this business in TV, film, sync licensing. And again, there's no sort of right answer to that for you. You have to see what I'm recommending with these different strategies and then kind of think about which one actually really resonates better with you, which one you feel has the most strengths for your current plan in your career. Okay, so I don't want this to be sort of like a multiple choice quiz where you have to select the correct one to succeed. You can actually succeed with all of these strategies, but there's just going to be a different approach and a different sort of consideration you should have for each one, okay? Let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with some definitions. We got to make sure that we are very clear about what we're talking about, okay? So let's talk about exclusive music libraries. What does that mean when you're submitting for a library and they say that we are looking for exclusive tracks? What exactly does that mean? It's basically a library that requires that your submitted tracks, okay, not you as the writer, not you as a composer being signed to them, but the submitted tracks that you're going to be submitting to them remain either totally or partially represented by them, basically distributed or published by them. They're acting essentially as a publisher, getting your tracks out into the TV film world, okay? So the reason why I underline submitted tracks, a lot of people think that if you get signed with an exclusive library, that you're basically signed to them as if they're a music label, like a record label, and you can't work with any other companies. That's not how this business works, okay? They don't sign you as a writer. It's very rare. Once in a blue moon, there might be a deal where they say, we want to pay you a salary to have you only exclusively work with us. Not very common though. More than likely what they're going to offer you is an exclusive contract for, let's say, your 10 tracks, 12 tracks that you submit to them, right? A full album. Or they'll just put you under contract to say any music that you submit to us and that we accept will fall under this exclusive licensing agreement. So this is basically going to cover all the music that you submit to us, okay? You're still free to work with other exclusive or non-exclusive music libraries. Not with the same tracks though. That's the important thing. So if you send 10 tracks to an exclusive library, you cannot turn around and submit those 10 tracks to another library, another non-exclusive library. And sometimes you can't even put it on iTunes or even on your own website to showcase your music. So we'll talk about those considerations. But exclusive means just that, exclusive. You should always just assume that, okay? Now let's talk about the total or partial exclusivity. What does that really mean? So if they're asking for total, that literally means you cannot post, sell, distribute, make money in any way, even if you're not making money, those exclusive tracks anywhere else, okay? No iTunes, no Spotify streaming, not on your website, not on your social media, nowhere publicly you should be posting these things, okay? Certainly not selling it, okay? So that's what total exclusivity means, that this music library is taking your tracks on and they need to have 100% control over the distribution of those tracks. Not your entire catalog, not your entire music career, just the tracks that you want them to represent for you. That's what total means, okay? What that does is that actually helps add the value to the music library's catalog, because now they can say to their clients, let's say there's some clients that are looking for music for their drama show that they're producing. The library can then go to those clients and say, we have exclusive content that you cannot find anywhere else. You won't be able to see it online, no other music libraries, not even on iTunes. We have the good stuff, right? This is really high quality, exclusive material that you can't get anywhere else. It's the same reason why a company like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon really pride themselves either on original content to say you can only get this content here, or they try to get those exclusive deals when they license other people's TV shows or whatever, or movies, right? To say, hey, if you want to watch this awesome popular TV show, you have to come to Netflix to watch it, right? That's why exclusivity is so powerful, because it provides a sort of a mini monopoly essentially on that content, and people have to come subscribe or come work with them to get that music, okay? Partial just means that there will be certain outlets or territories that you can sell, distribute, publish, monetize your tracks to. Let's talk about what those might mean, okay? One example could say You can also sell your tracks online, let's say through iTunes, or you can distribute your tracks through streaming services like Spotify, but you cannot put those same tracks in another music library. Okay, so that would be one way where they're saying, listen, if you're an artist, you're a band, we understand that you're selling your music out there. That's great. Keep doing that. We have no problem with that. But when it comes to TV, film, music licensing, we better not find your tracks in any other library. These tracks better be only with our catalog when it comes to the sync licensing business. But whatever you want to do with your own career, selling directly to your fans, touring, merchandise, anything that has to do with your music, we're absolutely okay with that. So some libraries will be open to that. Another example would say, let's say you're in the US, you sign a contract with a UK music library, which can be done. You can work with libraries all over the world, actually. Let's say they'll tell you that you're in the US. They'll say you can do anything you want with your tracks as long as it's outside of the territory of the signed licensing agreement. So let's say the UK library only deals with the UK. All the territories within the UK, they only get licensing contracts and placements through their outlets there. And they say to you, but that means that you can go to any US library and work with them if you'd like to. As long as they're not infringing upon our UK territory, you can do whatever you want. You can go to music libraries, you can sell your music, you can do anything you want as long as it's outside of our given territory. Sometimes oftentimes the territory will be the world, or sometimes they'll actually show you the universe, because who knows if we'll be on Mars in a couple of years. But they'll actually put those in there to say like, no, our territory is every territory, so you can't do anything else with your music. But if they're just interested in their little territory, they might give you this out, and then you can work with other companies as well. Okay, so that hopefully explains the areas there of exclusivity. So let's talk about non-exclusive. Okay, so this is the other side of the coin. These are music, TV, film, music libraries. Still, they're serving the same industry. Okay, it's not like they're serving a different part of the business. They can still serve the exact same side of the industry that exclusives do. But obviously, the big thing with them is they do not require that your submitted tracks remain totally or partially represented by them. Okay. Obviously, in the name and in the title, non-exclusive. You can work with them. You can work with another non-exclusive library, not another exclusive one. Okay, this is another point of confusion. Some producers think, well, I'll just send these 10 tracks to a non-exclusive, and then I'll just go ahead and send those same 10 because it's non-exclusive. I can do whatever I want. I'll send these same 10 to an exclusive library. And that's where the buzzer should go off in your head, because now when you send it to that exclusive library, they're not exclusive, are they? Because those tracks have already been distributed by another TV, film, music library. So non-exclusive, if you're going to go that route, we'll talk more about that. You have to go with other non-exclusive libraries for the same tracks. You can always create new tracks and then go to an exclusive library and keep those tracks with them. But if you're doing like multiple libraries with the same music, you got to just be aware of that. And of course, with all of this, the big disclaimer is read your licensing agreement, ask questions. These are generalizations that I'm making here based on the general trends that I see in this business, but there are exceptions to all of these rules, and there might be some non-exclusive that'll have different specifications put in place. So don't just take this presentation as gold that no matter what, my word trumps anything that a library is telling you. No, the library's word always trumps it, okay? And this is all coming from my experience with music libraries and the terms that I've seen in various licensing agreements throughout my career. Usually they'll allow you to do anything else you want to do with the submitted tracks, including submitting the same tracks to other non-exclusive libraries. I got ahead of myself there. And always checking your license agreement. Again, like I said before, don't assume. I should have waited until I put that bullet point up. Just repeated myself. So this is basically what we call the business of retitling tracks with the PROs. Okay, not pros like professionals. I should have capitalized that. It's totally legal. So what I mean by retitling, that means, let's say you go to library A, you give them these 10 tracks. Well, if you go to library B, there needs to be new registrations with the PROs for those 10 tracks, because there's already registrations existing with the titles of these 10 tracks with their publishing information and you as the writer. So as you go to this other non-exclusive library to submit the same tracks, well, you need to let them know, hey, there's another non-exclusive library, or when you submit to them, you need to change before you submit. Change all 10 track titles. You need to retitle those tracks as if they are new tracks, okay? You're not doing anything illegal. It's not nefarious. It's basically so that you can create 10 new unique registrations through ASCAP, BMI, or whatever PRO that you're affiliated with, okay? Because when these tracks get placed, or if these tracks get placed, there needs to be some sort of a way of deciding, figuring out, how do I explain this? So if you didn't retitle the tracks, this is a better way to explain it. If you didn't retitle the tracks, and let's say this was just called Super Awesome Cool Track that you submitted over here, and you didn't retitle it, and this was called Super Awesome Cool Track. Well, when there's a placement that's had and the same track is labeled, or the track wasn't retitled, there's a different publishing company associated with each one, right? This company has publishing A, this company has publishing B. So when there's a placement and the track title is the same, how do you know who distributed that track to get it placed? This is where there's going to be confusion in the registration process, right? So these need to be treated like they are completely separate registration, basically separate tracks. They are the same, but because they have a new title and there's going to be individual publishers associated with these registrations, they can be easily tracked down in terms of who needs to get paid. This confusion is what allowed, or what cost a lot of non-exclusive libraries a lot of income. They were missing out on royalties, a lot of battles and confusion about, hey, we got that track placed, why is that library getting the royalties? A lot of problems with it, okay? So it is legal. It's something that was totally legal within the industry, and it still is, but it's been causing missing royalties, misplaced payouts, et cetera, et cetera. This is one of the reasons why in the last couple of years, many non-exclusive libraries have been turning into exclusive ones for this particular reason, okay? Because they're realizing that it's not really worth the headache of missing royalties and always being entrenched in these legal battles or these royalty battles, missing royalties, right, to track that stuff down. So that's one of the reasons why this has been becoming less and less common, this retitling sort of business inside the industry. And I've definitely talked about that within my videos here. So anyways, moving on. Let's talk about exclusive pros and cons. What are the reasons why you would or maybe would not want to work with an exclusive library? Okay, start with the pros, of course. More likely to pay consideration fees. Consideration fees are those fees that they pay you when they accept your tracks. Not when your track gets placed. That's called a sync fee. That's different. That's when a client actually wants to put your track in a TV show, movie, or commercial. But when a library says, we love these 10 tracks, we're going to pay you $50 a track, $100 a track, sometimes even up to $500 or even $1,000 a track. They do exist. They are out there. This is where you're going to find these kind of deals where you can get a little bit of nice pocket change basically in your account very quickly in this business. This is that kind of quick money that you can get once your tracks are accepted to them. Not all exclusive libraries have to pay these exclusive or these consideration fees, and not all of them do. Some of them do, some of them don't. Why? Their business models really comes down to that, their preference. People usually don't like to pay money up front for music, but some of them have figured out the wisdom of when you do pay up front for music, you usually get, first of all, higher quality music, and you get more loyalty from the composers. So if you're not paying out fees to your writers, as a library, a lot of times your writers will go, you know what, I'm going to go work with somebody that does pay me. And so you as a library start to lose your high quality content creators, your music producers, right? So some of them have got that figured out, that just putting even just a little bit of money in the pocket of the producers and composers that work for them, keep them loyal, keep them coming back and supplying their catalog with high quality content. At the end of the day, if they don't have high quality tracks in their catalog, they have no business at all. So they really depend on you. So you should be aware of your power in this industry. Now, if you submit a track or you submit some tracks to a catalog, exclusive catalog, and they don't mention anything about consideration fees, you maybe ask them, hey, do you guys pay them out, or you guys offer them? Or maybe one thing you can ask them is there any scenarios or any sort of types of music that you would be interested in paying consideration fees for? Maybe I can submit some of those. If they just say no across the board, we don't allow them, we don't have a budget for them, or we just don't do them, just accept that, okay? That's either going to be a deal breaker for you, that you don't want to sign your tracks over to them and let them give it a shot at it, or you're welcome to try it, right? You can say, you know what, I wish I could get a little bit of upfront consideration for this, but let's see, maybe I'll make some pretty decent royalties and sync fees. In all honesty, consideration fees are not the biggest source of income you're going to see in this business. It's going to be those royalties. I think number one, at least in my career, it has been. Number two will be those sync fees. Those will be those large, custom opportunities you get. And then number three, underneath all of that, will be these consideration fees. Don't get me wrong. It's nice to get a couple $100 or $1,000 in your pocket, for making some music. I'm not discounting that. But if that's all you're in this for, you're kind of missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture is long-term passive income, which you get when you get placements and royalties, okay? Usually these exclusive companies are going to have stronger relationships with high value content creators. So this means more sync fees and more royalties for you. The reason being, as we talked about before, exclusive libraries have the higher quality exclusive content. And a lot of times, in my experience, what I've seen with a lot of these companies is they're the ones that have direct relationships with the ABCs, the NBCs, the sports networks, the trailer houses, or with film directors, producers, reality TV show producers. They're usually the ones that are going to have these really strong relationships that are going to be able to get you those high quality premium, top of the shelf placements that can result in consideration or back end royalties for you that can last for years and years and years, especially if you get something that gets syndicated and airs all the time. Okay, not so much with non-exclusive, and we'll talk about that. Usually exclusive libraries will give more individual attention to their composers, which would be you. They a lot of times have a sort of a close inner circle team member mindset. As I said before, an exclusive library really depends on the quality of their composers. So a lot of times they'll want to pull you in on updates of what they're working on and who they're pitching to and how they're using your music and what they see for the future of the company. Sometimes they'll even fly you out so you can meet people and they'll want to take a face-to-face meeting with you. I've definitely had this with some of the libraries I've worked with. So they really do value you as a team member, not just one out of 1,000 other composers that are just throwing music on their website, but they really do keep this niche and small. How small? It can be as small as 10 people that they work with, even less. Usually, though, you'll see probably 20 to 50 is about the number of writers that they, on any given time, are sending their opportunities out and asking for music from, which you might think is a large number, but it's really not that much because even at any given time, not all 50 of them are submitting for a custom opportunity or even available to submit to these kind of opportunities. So you got to make sure that you're the hungriest one on their roster. You're always available, so you'll get those opportunities, right? Usually these exclusive ones can't offer you those custom scoring gigs. Those are the ones where you do, a Jack in the Box commercial or a Nike or Ford commercial like I've done. Those can get you those nice, hefty upfront sync fees plus royalties on the back end sometimes. Okay, it depends on the opportunity of what you're being offered. But usually you're going to find these kind of opportunities through exclusive. So you're probably thinking, what's not to like about that? That's just all great. Well, there are some cons and there are some potential drawbacks you need to be aware of. Number one, obviously, you have to commit your music to their catalog, to their exclusive catalog for either in perpetuity, which is the legal fancy way of saying forever. So these tracks, if you spend a lot of time on, maybe a couple of weeks or a month on, they might have to, because of their licensing agreement, stay with their catalog forever, okay? So that's a big commitment. That's a potential waste of time. If those 10 tracks sit on their shelf, don't get licensed, go nowhere, you can't pull them off if your contract says in perpetuity. Now, another thing that can be done and can be negotiated if you know how to ask for it, and if they're willing to do this, is sometimes you can ask for what's called a reversion clause. This is a key word. You should always remember this. Write it down right now, reversion clause, okay? Usually what you'll find in some of these more modern contracts is they'll say, we will basically exclusively distribute your tracks for a period of sometimes 2 or usually it's 3 years. It's about 3 years. They do a 36-month timeline. And a lot of times what they'll say is if we don't get any placements for your music in that 36 months, 3 years, you can then send a request. You can't just instantly assume this. You have to send them a request. It's usually a 30-day notice. You'll tell them, hey, 36 months have gone by. I haven't gotten any placements from any of those tracks. I would like to take them out, and then you can basically go find another outlet for them, which is very powerful for you. So that way it's risky because you're spending 2 or 3 years with them and hoping that this sticks and goes through. But even if it doesn't, you know that after a couple of years, it's not a lost cause, right? That effort, you can then take that back and go to another library. Now, let's say one track got placed and the other 9 didn't. That contract then would state, obviously, because that one track got placed, you can't take that one track out because they're still probably getting some back-end royalties from that track that they did get placed, so they don't want to let go of that. But they'll probably gladly, due to the terms in the agreement with the aversion clause, say, you go ahead and take those 9 tracks back out. Absolutely, that's what we agreed to. Best of luck, right? So that's something you need to be very aware of, that there is a commitment that has to be here. But if you get this reversion clause, you have a little bit of wiggle room of what you can do. And obviously, when you have to commit stuff here and you have a lot of total or partial exclusivity, you can't make any other income from your submitted tracks elsewhere. So if you're currently an artist, a band, and you're selling music, you're streaming music, and you're actually making some decent money with your original music that you put out there, this might be something you might not want to go because, if you're making money and then you're going in this other route where you're not really sure how it's going to work out for you, usually you should stick with what's working for you already, right? And then you should add on, and we're going to talk about the non-exclusive route, which might be more appropriate for you. But if you haven't made any money at all with your music online, you haven't sold a track, you've made basically nothing, and you just want to do sync licensing primarily, this is not a big con for you because they're not missing out on any money from like iTunes downloads or streaming royalties, right? You're probably not making much of that anyways. So why not go for an exclusive library and let them do something with your music? So let's talk about non-exclusive pros and cons. So there obviously are a lot of benefits to them. I think sometimes people think of them as a sort of not so great side of the business, but there are some really great things about non-exclusives that you need to be aware of. Okay, first of all, they don't require exclusivity. So that can obviously, as we talked about, allow you a lot of freedom to do other things with your music if you have plans to do other things with your music, including submit to other non-exclusive libraries, right? They're usually always open for submissions, and a lot of them will have an online portal that you will upload your music to. So exclusive libraries, sometimes they'll have seasons where, we're not really open, we're not really looking for, they're a little bit more picky and they're not as always available to accept new music, right? Non-exclusives, in my experience, they are like open for business. It's like 7-Eleven. They are always open. They always want new music. And a lot of them, it's as simple as literally creating an online account on their website and just uploading your music to their catalog. You don't have to even send them an email. You don't have to ask to work with them. They'll probably have some sort of an online licensing agreement for you to read through, and you have to click and sign and agree to it right there. And you can do it all automatically, essentially, through their portal. A lot of them do this, okay? So it's very easy. It's very quick for you to get in there. So there's not a whole bunch of anxiety about submitting to them. Am I going to get accepted, okay? I know these were out of order there. Usually they are a little bit less strict about the tracks that they accept into their catalog. So exclusive libraries are going to be a little bit more, they want higher quality. They're going to be a little bit more picky about what they get into their catalog because they want to make sure that they have maintain their standards with their clients. Non-exclusives, because they're not paying usually, and we're going to talk about that, upfront, those consideration fees for their music, they'll usually accept not everything. I mean, they do have some standards, but they're a lot less sort of picky about what they accept into their catalog. They usually just want a large collection of tracks to be able to serve their clients and a large selection of them. Of course, there might be times where they go, you know what, that's not even close to what we accept. I'm not saying they don't have standards at all, but in my experience, it's a little lower standard than what you're going to see with exclusives. So here's the point that I think people don't realize is non-exclusives can still get you great placements. I still have a large collection of tracks I submitted to a non-exclusive library years ago. Every quarter, I still get placements on high quality primetime shows, earning me good money, okay? Hundreds of dollars every time those tracks get aired. So some people think, well, you're going to get the penny placements. You're not going to get anything good. In my experience, that is not true. I have certainly gotten some decent royalties that have come through. Of course, no consideration fees. I haven't gotten any custom sync fee opportunities through them, but I've gotten some placements and those royalties keep coming through. So it's not a waste of time, despite maybe what you've heard, okay? Let's talk about the cons. Some of those might be obvious to you. They don't offer those consideration fees because it's non-exclusive and they're open to almost anybody. They don't have the budget to pay out everybody for tracks. So they're also not asking for exclusivity, right? So they're not asking for an added value to your music. They're saying, hey, let's see what we can do. Maybe we can get you some placements. And if not, okay, you can go somewhere else. Best of luck. So, why would they charge or why would they give you any money for that sort of an open-ended deal where you can just kind of come and go as you please, right? Usually they don't have the major player relationships as we talked about with the exclusive libraries. So they're not going to probably have these really like bigger sort of placement opportunities for your music. Again, I've gotten some in some nice mostly reality shows, not necessarily network primetime stuff, but definitely in cable reality shows, and they've aired over and over again, and you can still get paid very well for those kind of opportunities, but they're not going to be as exclusive and strong as you will see with the exclusive libraries. Often they're not going to give you much or maybe even any individual attention. Like I said before, a lot of times they don't want to really interact or deal with their writers because there's so many. I mean, there's literally probably thousands of them submitting tracks to their online catalog. So they're not going to even be able to really talk to you one-on-one. Some of them will. Again, this is not, I'm painting with a broad brush, but there are going to be some that will be able to give you that attention. But a lot of times it's like, hey, you have a question, here's our frequently asked question page, and here's our portal. Just leave us alone. If you want something done, go do it here. Here's how you figure that stuff out. But there's not this like inner circle team mentality of like, we really want you guys to stick with us, because they're not investing necessarily in any one individual writer. They're playing the numbers game. They just want a large number of composers to fill up their catalog, right? And obviously, as we talked about before, they're not going to be able or as likely to offer those custom gigs that offer those large sync fee opportunities. So like a national ad campaign or something big like that. Usually those are going to be going to the exclusive libraries, not the non-exclusive libraries. Of course, there might be one or two here and there that are able to do that for you. But in my experience, all of those big opportunities came through exclusive licensing partners that I have. So here's the thing that I think a lot of you guys want to know. what should you do? What are the strategies? Where should you go with all this? Should you go all exclusive, all non-exclusive, a mixture of both? I'm going to talk to you about all of them right now and why they all basically can work for you. Okay, so like I said before, there's not one of these that's the correct answer. All of these can absolutely be effective. You just got to decide where are you with your priorities and what you want to do with your career and which one really speaks to you and decide, okay? So the first one is the A/B split test. Okay, this is basically what most of my career has been. This is why I start with this one. This is one that's really done well for me. So take it further for whatever that's worth to you. Okay, it might not work for you, might not be something that works for your particular approach, but it's certainly the one that's really worked for me. So basically, you're going to be submitting tracks to 2, maybe 3, if you have enough time to crank out a large number of tracks. But usually with just 2 exclusive libraries that are high quality, great libraries, you can basically submit simultaneously to both of them. Different music though, right? Not the same music, but exclusively different individual tracks to see which one delivers better results. So now that's why I call it the A/B split test. You can decide which one of these 2 companies over the course of maybe the first year or 2 are doing more for you. So what are results? Let's talk about results. Obviously, royalties, getting you placements resulting in royalties. So that's the biggest thing you need to be looking for. How many placements they're getting, what those placements are amounting to on your royalty checks. Attention, this is a big one. If you email them, are they waiting 4 weeks to get back to you? If you call them, do they wait to return your call for a couple of weeks? Or are they giving you some fairly decent, a turnaround within like a day or 2 of answering your questions, being very clear with you? And also, like I said before, involving you in the business of like, hey guys, we're glad you're part of our team. Here's what we're pitching to this month. Here's what we're going to. We're flying out to New York to do this. This is usually a sign that you have a healthy company you're working with and that they want you to be on their team to succeed with them, right? Sync fees for those upfront opportunities, all that good stuff, right? Those are all the results you should be looking for. Now, while those consideration fees and sync fees can come sooner, like I said, with consideration fees, you can get those right when you submit your tracks. And if they're offering them, you can get paid right away. Royalties from your placements usually take 1 to 2 years. So this takes time. This is why this industry is for those that have a long-term mindset. And it takes that long because it just takes 9 months for the PROs to gather the cue sheets of where your tracks were placed and calculate the royalty amounts for every single writer, get it through their metadata input, account it all, and then distribute those royalty statements and checks to all the thousands, hundreds of thousands of songwriters and publishers that they represent. It's a lot of metadata, it's a lot of work, and it just takes a long time. So you're gonna have to wait a while to see which one. People say, well, how do I know within the first 6 months who's getting me? Like, sometimes you just don't know, guys. I wish I could give you some sort of a magical answer, but sometimes you just have to wait for these longer periods of time to see what comes out on your royalty checks, okay? What I do recommend if you're going to do this is you keep 2 separate folders on your hard drive of tracks you submitted to each library, so then you can measure your results, right? So when you get that royalty check and you have super awesome track 1 and killer cool track 2, whatever you're calling your tracks, you need to know which library were these tracks distributed through. That way you can go, okay, well, this track made me, let's say you get just 2 placements on your first royalty check. This placement got me $5. This placement got me $500. That says something, right? That doesn't give you the full picture. Probably one royalty statement is not going to give you a full picture of what each one of these companies can do for you. But this is basically the running tally total that you should be keeping track of to say, okay, well, Library A got me $5, cool. Library B got me 500. And maybe that's in different numbers of placements, right? But at the end of the day, what's the most important thing? Income, literally the dollar amounts. Okay, that's what matters, the bottom line. So if one library gets you 1 placement and it earns you, like I said, $500, let's say the other one got you 1,000 placements, but the total of all those 1,000 placements was only $100, which one do you want to work with? Again, another factor with that, if that $500 placement, that single placement was only a one-time deal and it was like, say it was a promo on TV and it's never going to air again, but these 1,000 placements will air for years and years and years because it got into a show that got syndicated. Again, there's so many moving factors in this, so you basically have to kind of keep a bird's eye view as you go through your royalty statements from quarter to quarter to understand this stuff. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Okay, so that was the A/B split test. Let's talk about the one exclusive, maybe 2 if you can, and then you can go basically with multiple non-exclusives, okay? So 1 exclusive library, you submit only this music to, and then you have non-exclusive, maybe 2 or 3, 4, 5, I mean, literally 10. You can go for as many as you want as long as you're not violating any of their licensing contracts. You work with one exclusive library and then create a second catalog essentially that you would submit to various non-exclusive libraries. Okay, so essentially it's two separate catalogs. The exclusive catalog going for this company, and then you could have a separate one calling, even on your hard drive, just call it non-exclusive tracks. And that's your entire catalog that you can shop out to multiple companies, as many as you can, as many as you feel would do well for your music, as long as they're all non-exclusive, okay? Not mixing those two worlds. And this way you can still A/B split test basically your results between the various libraries. You can split test between all the non-exclusives that you have going on, same thing I talked about before, and you can split test between one exclusive versus all of these non-exclusives. If all of these are doing better for you than this one, maybe you realize, you know what, I don't want to go the exclusive route anymore. I want to start going more in this non-exclusive way because I'm getting more opportunities and more placements through them. So it's still sort of an A/B test split that you can do. Obviously, the benefit for this, for the non-exclusive side of your catalog, they have much further distribution, right? So you can get it into 10, 20, 50 different non-exclusive libraries. That means there's 50 different marketplaces, essentially, that your tracks are being shopped to. Doesn't mean necessarily you get 50 times the amount of placements or 50 times the amount of income, but the distribution, the chances of your tracks getting out there and getting placed do obviously increase with this strategy. But again, the downside to that is non-exclusive libraries are not going to offer you consideration fees, probably no sync fees, and their relationships aren't going to be those sort of primetime relationships, those big player relationships that get you those like more primetime royalties, sync fees, that kind of a thing, right? You've got to stay organized, as each non-exclusive library obviously will retitle your tracks, as we talked about before. So if you submit to 20 different companies, you're going to make sure that you retitle that catalog 20 different times. So each non-exclusive library is going to register, again, the same tracks, but with new titles. So you got to be very, very organized. So you make sure that you're not submitting the same titles to another library, and then there's going to be royalty confusion, and they might not want to work with you because of this stuff. So you got to make sure that you're very organized with your files, okay? So let's talk about some more catalog strategies. Let's go for all non-exclusive. So we don't even worry about the exclusive side. We just go for all these non-exclusives, okay? Obviously, submit to as many non-exclusive libraries as you'd like. Check your licensing contracts, make sure you're not violating anything. But in general, you can submit to 1,000 different companies with the same music. You don't have to ever worry about violating contracts as long as they're all saying non-exclusive, okay? Now, what this is perfect for is, again, bands, artists that want to use their catalog in TV, film. So if you plan on monetizing or currently are making money from your music and you don't want to create a separate catalog for exclusive libraries, this is probably the route that would work best for you. So that way you can just take, let's say you put out an album this year, you can take those same 12 tracks on your album, throw it into 100 different non-exclusive libraries and let them know, you know, my tracks are being monetized over here. You still need to be transparent about that. But as long as they're non-exclusive in nature, they're not going to have anything to say about that because it's non-exclusive. They're okay with that. So that might work for you if you plan on doing that or are doing that now. So you can obviously still sell your music online, streaming, touring, all that good stuff. All the monetizing that you want to do and publicizing, you can still do that. Obviously, with this strategy, you get your music in the most hands possible. These are not always the most qualified hands or the most hands that are going to get you the most amount of money, but technically, this will get your music out there into the most places as possible, okay? So let's talk about lastly about royalty-free and stock libraries. I get this question quite a bit too about like, is it worth it to go with these royalty-free sites and what are they all about? So basically, these are what they are is, if you didn't know, let me just get rid of this so we're not confusing ourselves. They're basically going to be catalogs that are exclusively tailored for, I shouldn't use the word exclusively because that'll confuse people, but they're primarily geared at content creators that are not going to have royalty generating revenue for you. Okay, so this is somebody who's putting together a web video for their website or just a quick little, basically it could be a corporate video, it can be a promo video, it could be whatever it is. But a lot of times it's for online content where there is not going to be any back-end royalties generated or tracked for you. Okay, and so usually what they'll do is they'll say, hey, come and clear the music here. It's a one-time fee, and then that producer, let's say of a web series or something like that, or even a promo or a commercial online that they want to do, for their private business. You pay one time and then you can use that track however you want to based on the terms, and you never have to pay royalties and all that stuff, okay? So if you submit to these catalogs, you would get a one-time fee, you'd split it with whatever company you're distributing it through, and that's it. No back-end royalties, no sync fees, no custom opportunities. I should say there might be some custom opportunities with these companies, but not the norm. Most of the time, you're just submitting tracks and hoping somebody comes and buys essentially your track, and you get a little cut from that one time. Okay, same track can be sold multiple times. There's that chance for passive income, but not performance royalties where you're going into syndication and other countries, and you get those kind of really awesome royalties, right? So mostly meant for content creators who will not put your tracks in royalty generating mediums, as we talked about before. Okay. So there's that one-time fee split between you and the library. Sometimes it's 50-50. Sometimes they give you the vast majority of it. It just depends on whatever company you're working with. They have different terms. Okay. Obviously, usually no royalties. There might be some exemptions for this. So if somebody does pay for a track and it is going to go to air and it requires them to submit a Q sheet to ASCAP or BMI, you will still get your royalties for that. I'm just saying that usually people who are in the royalty generating business, they have content that can generate royalties, are usually not going for these ones. These are usually not the ones that they want to work with. They want to work with the exclusive ones or sometimes non-exclusive ones. These are usually not where they're going to go. You can certainly make money. Don't make any mistakes about it. These are definitely places where I know people do make money, okay? But I don't believe it's the source where you're going to get that passive income that'll grow into full-time income that TV film can provide for you. Okay, this is about maybe some short-term upfront pocket change here and there. Again, not discounting little bits of money. There's almost no gig that's too small for me still. But it's not going to be providing for that passive income that you're probably looking for where you want to grow and double your royalties, right? One thing you can do with all of the opportunity or the strategies that I've outlined for you, the three previous ones, one thing that you can do is, let's say you get some tracks rejected by an exclusive or non-exclusive library. So non-exclusive libraries can still reject some of your tracks. You get some tracks rejected. This is maybe a place you want to start to throw some of those rejected tracks into at least something that can generate income from you. That's better than your tracks sitting on your hard drive and you're not shopping them, you're not doing anything with them. They're just sitting there. That's nothing. That's terrible. That's worse than doing nothing, actually. At least with these stock sites, royalty-free sites, which pretty much I can almost guarantee you they're going to accept them. Again, depends on your quality of your tracks. But you can take some of those tracks that you've done and throw them at least somewhere that you can gather some sort of income from. That's definitely better than your tracks sitting on a hard drive. Now, in my career, I have not done that just because the amount of tracks that have never been accepted by a library that I've worked with have been maybe 5 tracks at the most, maybe 5. Actually, there was one album that didn't get placed. Let's say it's probably 10 or 12 actually. But it's not enough for me to, and these tracks that I produce are not going to be really useful for these kind of, they were just, it was just a bad idea what I did, the kind of music that I was making. It's too slow, too dreary. But if you have tracks that are like upbeat, and they feel like somebody could use them for some sort of maybe a promo or a commercial or something like that for some small project, throw them up there, right? At least you could earn something back end, or earn some income at least from your tracks rather than sitting on your hard drive. So that's the general overview of exclusive versus non-exclusive. Now, with all of this, you obviously decide which way you want to go. But here's the most important point I want to make in this video, okay? So I hope you've made it through this far, and if you have, you're going to get the most important thing, which is either way you go, make direct relationships with these companies, okay? You cannot build a career on signing up for a middleman service that says, oh, just pay us a monthly fee and we'll shop your music out to these exclusive libraries or non-exclusive libraries or whatever it is, okay? If you don't know these people's names, you don't have their email addresses, you don't have their phone numbers, you're not talking to them personally, you don't have a direct working relationship with these exclusive, non-exclusive companies, you don't have a career. You really don't. What you have is a middleman doing basically the work that you should be doing, okay? So I don't care which way you go, which way feels the best for you. Either way, just go directly to these companies. Submit directly, talk to them directly, communicate with them, email them, call them, however you feel you communicate best, but make a direct relationship. This is a people business, okay? It's not a throw spaghetti against the wall, hire some middleman. Hopefully my tracks will shine over the other tens of thousands of tracks that they're also competing with. This is not the American Idol sort of business model where you're like, okay, I just want to go audition. I know there's 10,000 other people and I just hope I'll just submit my submission fees and hopefully I get, no. You don't do it that way, okay? If you want this to be full-time income, right? For those that are serious about this, you've got to be an independent contractor that directly serves the needs of your clients. In this industry, your clients will be exclusive or non-exclusive libraries, okay? They don't want to work with you unless you've made a personal appeal, a personal touch, you've submitted to them in a very direct and specific way. You didn't do a spam thing where you just threw out your music to 100 exclusive libraries and hoped one of them liked your tracks. But you put some personalized attention into your submission, Neil, and said, I've looked you guys up, I've done my research, and I think my music can really actually serve your guys' needs, and I think it really will enhance your catalog. That's how you're going to get into the inner circle of these companies, exclusive or non-exclusive. That's how you're going to get noticed and treated more professionally in this business. There's just no shortcut for it. You have to do that work. You can't outsource that to anybody else. So anyways, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, any points of confusion that maybe I misspoke on, which I can do sometimes, please leave it as a comment below. I love to read it.